I'm recording the student orientation. You can find any of the admins if you have any problems whatsoever at any time by doing admins in the Zulip channel, and one of us can get back to you if you have an immediate need. Okay, so I'm going through this examples of successful students that we've had in the past and also examples of students who have failed in the past to help you all understand the work that you're coming into for the summer. So for successful students, here are some patterns we've seen in the past. There are people who have followed the rubric, have followed our workflow, and over communicated all of the things that they were doing every single day. They reviewed the rubric by each of the phase and understood that what was expected of them from the community bonding phase, what was expected of them throughout the first, second, and final during the coding phase, and what was expected for them as they were wrapping up and completing their GSoC experience at the end after the coding phase as well. A lot of them managed their time to complete all of the action items, and it was very clear to me who was going to be successful when they completed the easy action items very early. So, for example, one of the easy action items during the community bonding period was setting up your wiki profile. So when people had access to complete that, they would complete it literally within 1 or 2 days. The students who did follow the workflow, this year we definitely have updated all of our commit style guidelines on each of the repositories. If this is the first time you've heard of this, please reach out and so that you're very well aware of like what the commit style guidelines are, because that is a change that we've made this year. Please make sure you're following that this year. Yeah. So when it was available for the students, they did follow the commit style guidelines in the past, and one commit per PR. And they've also always created the testing alongside the features they were building as well. And by over communicated at that time, we were using Slack, but right now, over communicating, you can post very frequently in Zulip. It doesn't have to be that you only post on Zulip when you need help. It can also be that you post in Zulip whenever you have worked on something. So if you're just working on something, you can always post on Zulip and said, here are the couple of things that I'm working on today, and I'm really excited to do this, this, and this. Here are the things. It's basically like a monologue. And it's okay if people aren't reacting and posting back, but knowing that you're the person that to go to for that particular project will give other people the opportunity to reach out to you if they do want to contribute and if they do want to help, especially newcomers and people who are new to the community. Also, by over communicating, they were very fast to respond on GitHub within 1 or 2 days of having a code review from their mentors. So students who have failed, these are actual examples of students who have failed in the past. And we've also taken these examples from the resource link of the Google Guides. So Google has a guide for mentors, and Google also has a guide that they have created for students. So here are some examples. The students didn't have enough hours dedicated to GSoC, so they had other commitments, like maybe they were pursuing a master's or they were doing another internship, and it was just very clear that GSoC was never a high priority for them, and so that's why some of them had to fail. There's a silent student and a missing student. There's a difference between these two, and so a silent student is someone who doesn't speak up on issues that they have that are causing them to not succeed. So for example, this particular silent student waited till the very end of the final phase to let me know that they were not receiving any response from their mentors. So they didn't receive any code reviews, they didn't receive any merged PRs, and so their code kept failing because the PRs weren't merged in time. So there was conflicts every single time that they actually did merge. Anyways, there was a lack of mentorship, and no admin was aware, and so the student had failed because they were not communicating with their specific needs. So that's what a silent student is. So like a missing student is someone who's completely not communicative and have stopped attending meetings and have stopped posting on Zulip or stopped responding to messages on GitHub. Another student who has failed has used multiple excuses. There is a student who even used the the excuse that their parents had passed away and their grandparents had passed away. So each phase when the code was due, they used someone who had passed away as a way to delay the code even further, and then we didn't hear back from them whatsoever. So make sure that you're following an emergency plan and you're following the rubric when it comes to those emergency situations, because GSoC does not allow additional time for people to complete their work. There are some other programs that does that, such as Outreachy, but GSoC is not one of them. There's also a hostile student that's not receptive to feedback, and there's a hostile student who also looked to sabotage others in the GSoC program. So in the past, there are people who have reached out and to admins and said, well, this person hasn't done this, this, or this. And I understand that, and I'm well aware of it too. I probably just didn't get to them just yet. I just reached out to you first. However, if you're looking to sabotage others, it means that you had enough time to put into yourself that you're not doing that. But you're not doing that. So that's also a hostile student that we've had to fail in the past. Make sure you're just paying attention to yourself and your own needs and your own progress, and you would be more successful than trying to compare yourself to others. So 1-1 meetings expectations. I understand that you all have used these 1-1s, 2-1s, 3-1s to kind of do a work session. However, this is a form of hand-holding, and students have used it as an excuse in the past to not complete their work. So if these work sessions can continue, if they are absolutely necessary, please continue them. If they're absolutely helpful for you all to connect as well on an in-person level, please continue them. However, there should be additional separate meetings from the work session that you have going on. So they should be 1-1 meetings that are at least 15 minutes. So 1-to-1, I have one with all of my students and all of my mentors. All of the mentors should have one with their admin and their student. And it's just 15 minutes to just talk about areas of achievements that they have. They're really great. And then areas of improvement. And so some areas of improvement for me are very transparent. I was not very active this past week on Zulip, so I know that there's a lot of pending items from me and pending questions from a lot of people who had asked a lot of things. So that's one of my areas of improvement, and it should be very yes, it should be a very honest meeting, but also not intentionally malicious. So make sure that you're not telling people that they're bad just to tell them that they're bad, but just letting them know here's a place that would help me to be a better admin for you, or in a mentor's case, that would help them to be a better mentor for you. Also, the 1-1 meetings reduce a lot of confusion because it helps to bridge the gap of the virtual communication versus the in-person communication that we're used to. Did you know what I meant to say when I typed this? There's a lot of tone behind text messages that aren't well interpreted as if you were in person, where you could see if somebody was actually leaning in or leaning against your solution. So please make sure that you do have these high touch points of 15 minutes, because this will also help your communication between team members. Another thing is, I don't know if you realize this, but your opinion does matter. As a student, you are the project lead, which means you're the expert on the current progress of the app. There's literally nobody else on this entire planet as of right now who can tell us the current progress of the app better than you can, because you are the person who's actively developing on it. Mentors are guides, they are not dictators, and mentors are a resource after you've Googled at least once, you've looked at Stack Overflow, Quora, Reddit, etc. All of the technical solutions platforms that you know of, you've tried at least 2 different solutions that you found online and you failed, and you come back to the mentors as a resource to say, I've done XYZ, here's what I've tried, here's what doesn't work, and do you have any idea of how I can solve this? A lot of people have used the mentors as their first solution and their first resource instead of doing any of the hard work to research online. And it's very clear to us that you're looking to get handheld through this experience and not working really hard to try things and fail things on your own. And that's really important. Make sure that when you're giving feedback, you're not steamrolling others. When you're offering feedback from a student, if it's from a student, a mentor, an admin, either whichever title, it doesn't matter. It's an opportunity to discuss. It's not an opportunity to dictate from anyone. Updates to Student Rubric. So I will review the current rubric. I won't read it because you all can read it on your own. But here are the expectations in terms of the acceptable minimum criteria on this one. There's also a section that says during the community bonding period, during the coding period, and after this, I think this is the final week when you're doing demos. The student responsibilities link gives you a link to the Google site of what the students have accepted and have agreed to. Here's the same information of copy pasted from that same responsibilities. The only difference is in the red, we want to make sure that you inform where we're being very, very direct and very, very honest that this is the one that matters the most to us. Please make sure that you're informing immediately. You have to communicate with us if anything happens where you have to disappear. Also, communicate when your work capacity is reduced. For emergencies, we do accept within 24 hours, but for things that are absolutely planned, i.e. weddings, events, etc., make sure that that's 2 weeks in advance. There's also emergency situations here, and as mentioned at the very top, if your laptop breaks, make sure that you're required to follow the emergency plan that's set in your proposal. So the thing that you had mentioned before, whether it was a backup machine, whether you're going to a library, whether you're going to a computer lab, I don't know if those are available during the pandemic, but if that's what you said, that's what we're expecting you to do. And also, this is the example of a schedule of leave. So if 3 days of sick leave or 2 days of bereavement leave, basically if you need to, at some point, at any point, you can take all 8 days of these and postpone your work for a total of 8 days. If something does happen to the point where there's like a bereavement leave and you have someone who's lost, especially during the pandemic, we understand that that is highly, highly possible. So make sure that you're taking your full days and your full 8 days and taking the time that you need to recover with your family. But then when you come back, all of the work will just be pushed back. So you're doing double work that week that you're coming back, which will be tough, but it is definitely manageable. I've seen other people do it. So that's the quick review. The biggest change that we've made is that we've added a line that says that you need to add documentation. So for example, up here, I think I've highlighted in yellow, documents the work in Google Drive and GitHub Wiki. So one of the examples that I used up here is that each one of you all have already created your own folders, or we've already created these folders for you. So you can click on any of these to see like the diagrams, the planning stage that people have created. Also, in other folders, there's also design mocks that people have created and have updated all their assets. So basically, the Google Drive will be the house to all of the assets, images, PNGs, documents, etc., that you're taking notes on or that you've created throughout the entire program. And one of them, I know, for example, we have an ER diagram somewhere and a UML diagram somewhere else. You're responsible for updating that. And then on the wiki side, you can use the Mentorship Android as an example. So they have a lot of user interface design links and documentation on what was decided and when. In the current UI of the app, they show the first UI design with low fidelity and the second UI design with a prototype and also with some Google Drive folders as well. So you're able to do that right now with that Google Drive folder that you created in your own project here. There's also an area for tech stack. There's an area to set up and install. There's an area for project requirements. There's also some initial docs that show the backend documentation and the app documentation. This is a great place to start if you don't know what to document. All right. Outside of that, that's all of the updates is just the documentation. We need to have that this year. Otherwise, we're not gonna move forward in a lot of the work that you have all completed. So make sure you're well documenting your work. For those who don't remember, we did do a terms and agreements inside of the Google form, part 1 of 2. One of the things that you agreed to was being available to work 40 hours. Another one was to tell us all of the commitments that you have. So, for example, a lot of you are doing final exams, and I know that the schedule that you gave us and the schedule that is going to happen may be different. So you have to inform us as soon as possible, as soon as you know when the final exams are happening, or if the final exams have been canceled and you're doing assignments instead, that's completely fine. Just let us know what to expect in terms of what your other commitments are. And make sure that you're following all of, oh, sorry, I apologize. And the end, I remember we created a question that said that you understood that you are at risk for failing when you don't meet the minimum acceptable criteria. So as I mentioned before, I just went through the student rubric. There's an acceptable criteria column, and then there's an exceptional criteria on the right side as well. So quick FAQ. Where can I find all of this information? As far as I know, all of you all have the same access to GSoC20. You may not be able to see this admins folder, but that's just because it's supposed to be just for admins. There's an archive, mentors, and students folder, and the GSoC open session. You can find these slides in the student folder right here in student orientation. You can also find the student rubric check, and you can also find the student rubric here. As far as I know, as of today, the only part of the student rubric that was completed was the community bonding period, and it seems like everyone is in good in good standing for the community bonding period. There was nothing in here that told us that we needed to reach out to you all for issues. So, but as far as I know right now, the coding phase has not been completed for the first week. Can you get in contact with admins? A great way is office hours. There's at least one admin available every single week. Isabel is available every week right now with her current bandwidth on Monday at 6 p.m. EST. However, that is 3:30 a.m. IST on Tuesdays. And these are just open office hours where you can come in and ask questions. It's not necessarily to talk about private matters, but you can talk to us a little bit about how to go about reporting something. Anna is available every 3 weeks on Friday, 10 a.m., and I'm available every 3 weeks on Thursday, 10 a.m. EST. Again, this is 7:30 IST time, and I put some times here, but you can also see them in the GSoC calendar as well. There's also an opportunity to schedule appointments. When you click on this, you will have to log into your Gmail, and it'll look like this. Every single week we have an hour available on Tuesday and an hour available on Thursday. One of these may not be suitable for IST time zone because as you can see it's 9 a.m. EST here, which means it'll be a 6:30. But this one will be a little bit later. So it's up to you all to go through, and if it's a private matter, you can just click here and you can tell me if Zoom is preferred or if Google Meet is preferred. And I will make sure that that's set up to your bandwidth level. And then if you just do the private matter to discuss here, an example of a private matter to discuss is that a mentor of ours is reaching out to you on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and asking you for your private number. That's not okay. And that also breaches our code of conduct. So if that's something that's been happening and has made you uncomfortable and you've told them to stop and they haven't stopped, reach out to us and let us know that this is happening, okay? But those are examples of emergency private matter only. If it can wait to an office hour, please attend one of these open office hours, and always post on Zulip. If it's not a private matter, feel free to ask any questions on the questions channel. I think we regularly check that and respond frequently. Outside of that, thank you so much for coming in to the student orientation. I apologize for missing it. I'm just not going to schedule anything before 8 a.m.s. All right, have a good one. Good luck.